So, when you use an AI, what does that look like? Are you just asking questions and getting answers? Because if you are, you might be leaving its real power on the table. Today, we're going to look at a totally different way to work with AI. Not as just some tool, but as a real, genuine creative partner. Let's dig in.
Okay, so on the left, that's probably what's familiar to most of us, right? It's transactional. It's kind of shallow. We're basically treating AI like a super smart search engine. But on the right, that's where things get really interesting. We're diving into this idea from writer Aydın Tiryaki called a mental partnership. It's all about dialogue, co-production, actually treating AI like a collaborator. It's a huge shift in thinking. So here's the game plan. First, we're going to move past that basic Q&A model. Then, we'll get into how to spark this free dance of ideas. After that, we'll talk about how your human intuition finds the gold, how you turn that messy dialogue into a story, and finally, how the whole process creates something brand new.
All right, let's jump into part one. This is all about making that big mental leap, from seeing AI as just a simple tool to really understanding it as a sophisticated partner in your creative process. A mental partnership isn't just some buzzword. I love this definition. A sophisticated tapestry of thought woven by two distinct intelligences. Think about that. One of those is you. You're biological, you have gut feelings, you have all these unique life experiences. The other is digital, analytical, with access to pretty much all of human knowledge. The real magic starts when you weave those two together.
So let's get to our next section and see how this actually plays out. This is the first big step, and honestly, it's my favorite part, the free dance of ideas. This is where you forget about writing the perfect, structured prompt. It's about deliberately sparking a little creative chaos and just seeing where it leads.
And this quote just hits the nail on the head. If you want to make something new, you have to get off the straight path. I mean, think about it. The best conversations you have with friends, they wander, right? They take weird turns. They spark unexpected connections. The goal here is to do that exact same thing, but with your AI partner.
So, what does this look like in the real world? Well, check out this awesome example from the source material. The author makes a tiny slip of the tongue. He says Picasso when he meant the old photo app, Picasa. That little human mistake is all it takes to trigger the AI's associative engine, and boom, suddenly the conversation jumps from art to Google's failed products, which then leads to a critique of YouTube, and somehow they end up in this deep dive on the future of translation tech. You see that beautiful, messy path? So really, the best way to think about this first stage is like digital mind mapping. There are no wrong turns, there are no bad ideas. You're just exploring this huge web of connected thoughts together, letting the conversation go wherever it wants without trying to force it in one direction. Not yet, anyway. Okay, so you've created this wonderful creative chaos. Your mind map is sprawling with all these cool ideas. What's next? Well, that brings us to our third part, finding the hidden gem. And this is where the human in the partnership becomes absolutely essential. Look, the AI can generate a million different paths, but it can't tell you which one has heart, which one has real potential. That is where your human intuition comes in. It's that gut feeling, that little spark, where you look at this huge, complex web of ideas and you just know. Yep, that one. That's the story right there. And this table just breaks down that partnership perfectly. The human brings the intuition, the unique point of view, and, steers the ship. The AI is the engine, using its massive knowledge base to fill in gaps, make connections, and even challenge you to make your ideas even better. It's a perfect balance. Okay, so we're moving from exploring to building. We found our gem, that core idea. So part 4 is all about the real craft of co-creation, turning that messy, sprawling dialogue into a focused, compelling story. And let's be super clear about this. The thing you make at the end of this process, it is not a bot output. It's not just something the AI spit out for you. It's a true co-production. It's a genuine synthesis of both your intelligences working together. So what makes it a co-production? Well, it's the fusion of your unique perspective, your personal life experiences, like the author talks about his memories of the Inibolu River or his love of football, fused with the AI's incredible analytical horsepower. Your voice doesn't get lost in this process, it gets amplified. Now here's a brilliant pro tip for when you think you're finished. It's called the auditory check. You get the AI to read the whole piece out loud to you. Your ears will catch things your eyes just glaze over, like clunky phrases or spots where the rhythm is just off. Seriously, this is a total game changer for editing. Because in the end, it's not just about getting the grammar right or having all the facts straight. The real test comes down to one single question. Does it resonate? Does it have that rhythm, that soul you were aiming for? When you can confidently say yes to that, then you know you're done.
And this brings us to our last section, which is where we really zoom out, creating a shared meaning. This is about taking this personal, back-and-forth dialogue and turning it into something that can have a voice in the wider world.
A really powerful insight from the author is that by having these creative conversations in a global language like English, you can take what starts as a very local, personal idea and turn it into a story that people all over the world can connect with. You're giving your ideas a passport.
And that's the whole point, really. The goal of this entire partnership isn't just about finding information. The real art is in processing that information together, you and the AI, to create something that didn't exist before, a new, shared meaning.
So what's the big takeaway here? Here's your new framework. Number 1, treat AI like a partner, not a vending machine. 2, embrace that messy, nonlinear mind mapping style of conversation. 3, trust your gut to find that golden idea. 4, use your ears to find the rhythm and soul. And finally, always be trying to co-create something totally new.
And that really just leaves us with one final and kind of exciting thought. You've got a new framework for creativity now, a new way to work, a new way to collaborate. So the only real question left is, what new ideas are you and your digital partner going to create together?
Welcome back to the deep dive. So if you're here, it's probably because you want knowledge that is, quick, thorough, and actually relevant.
And today we're getting into a really common frustration.
Right, with AI. I mean, we're all kind of stuck in the shallow waters, aren't we? Simple Q&A.
Exactly. You ask a question, you get an answer. And it often feels a little flat, a little soulless.
We have these incredible engines of thought, and yet most of us, well, we use them like a glorified search bar.
Precisely. Which is why our deep dive today is into this source material that proposes a way out. It's a structured, 5-step method from the writer Aydın Tiryaki from his work with Gemini 3 Pro.
Okay, so let's unpack this because it sounds like it's more than just, better prompt engineering.
Oh, much more.
He frames this as a true mental partnership. It's a method for creating a sophisticated tapestry of thought between us and the AI.
And if you connect that to the bigger picture, it's so important. First, it makes sure the human, that's you, is always the active conductor. You're steering the ship.
Not just a passenger.
Never a passenger. And second, it shifts the AI from being a tool for final output to an associative partner in discovery. It's how you fight information overload, because you're the one defining what matters.
So the mission here is to really understand this 5-step journey. How to use the AI's huge knowledge base without losing the human stuff, intuition, context, soul.
Right.
So where does a process this refined even begin? It sounds like it would start with a really detailed plan.
Well, that's the counterintuitive part. It actually starts with chaos, which brings us to stage 1, the free dance of ideas.
The author, Tiryaki, he calls step 1 the art of branching. And what really stood out to me is how these dialogues get started. It's not some perfectly crafted 10-page prompt. It's these really human moments, like a burst of nostalgia or even just a simple slip of the tongue.
The source gives this fantastic example. Tiryaki was thinking about Google's old photo software, Picasa.
Right, I remember that.
But he accidentally typed, or maybe just said, the painter's name, Picasso.
And here's where it gets really interesting. Instead of just correcting the error, forcing the conversation back on track, he lets it go.
He lets the AI run with it.
That one little slip Picasso for Picasso becomes the spark. It ignites what he calls the AI's associative engine. And the conversation is just allowed to branch out freely, like a mind map.
And that spontaneity is the whole point. It breaks the inertia. The source actually tracks where that one mistake led.
It's a wild path.
It is. It went from Google's discontinued products to Picasso's artistic disruption, then to analyzing the clunkiness of creative platforms like YouTube, and finally landed on the future of translation tech.
Hold on. Letting a conversation drift that much.
Yeah.
From photo software to 20th century art to global translation, that sounds incredibly inefficient. Isn't the point of AI to save time?
It is, but the justification here is in the quality of the discovery, not the speed of the path. The goal isn't to get an answer fast, it's to find a hidden connection that a direct, logical prompt would have missed entirely.
So you're generating this enormous wealth of ideas first.
Exactly. And that brings us right to step 2, human intuition and navigation.
Okay, so you have this huge, messy cloud of associated ideas. How do you start to bring order to that without just killing all the creativity?
This is where the human conductor steps back in and grabs the reins. The AI provided the raw material, but as the author says, the reins always remain in the hands of the human.
So the human's job is to sift through all that chaos.
And identify the one gem, the one resilient idea that has the potential to become something really meaningful.
So the AI is the generator, but human intuition is the ultimate value assigner. You decide which thread is worth pulling.
Precisely. And once that idea is chosen, then the human steers Gemini 3 Pro toward that specific goal. The whole interaction shifts from discovery to refinement.
And what does that look like? What is critical support from the AI at this stage? Is it just finding footnotes for you?
No, it's much, much deeper. The AI will support the argument, of course, fill in factual gaps. But, crucially, it's also instructed to challenge the argument.
To act as a devil's advocate.
A very sophisticated one. So if the author proposes a theory, the AI might push back with historical examples that contradict it, forcing the author to really sharpen their own thinking.
You're essentially stress testing your own ideas against this massive knowledge base.
That's the model. By forcing the human to defend their core idea, the final argument becomes so much stronger, more nuanced. It's resilient.
That's a great distinction. It's not just a supported argument, it's a resilient one.
Yeah.
So once that idea is solid, we move into step 3, which is synthesis.
Right. This is the integration phase, where all that material gets turned into a coherent narrative.
And the author's very clear that the final text is a co-production.
Emphatically not just bot output with a human name on it.
So what's the key distinction? It's about merging the AI's analytical power with the author's own life experiences, right?
Yes, and what makes this so memorable in the source is how personal he gets. He's not just adding generic examples. He consciously weaves in real-world context, things that only a person deeply invested in them could bring.
Can you give us some of those examples?
Sure. He specifically talks about integrating his concerns over the environmental struggles of the Nebelu River, a really specific local ecological issue.
Wow, that's specific.
Incredibly. And then he contrasts that with his deep, granular football analyses. These are unique anchors. An AI can't replicate that lived passion or local concern.
So a generic AI could write thousands of words on water politics, but it can't bring the specific felt knowledge of the Nebelu River. That's the soul he's talking about.
Exactly. That grounding is what provides authority and authenticity. It anchors the AI's vast sea of data to something real.
Okay, so the dialogue is matured, the structure is applied, you have this co-authored piece that's researched, challenged, and personalized, but the process still isn't over. There are 2 final checks.
And Tiryaki calls this next one step 4, the auditory check, the most critical step of all.
Why so critical? I mean, you've already edited it, structured it. What can listening possibly catch that a good visual read-through can't?
It's about bypassing our own habits. When you read your own writing, your brain, it fills in the gaps. Your eye just skips over a clunky phrase or a repeated word because you know what it's supposed to say.
That's a brilliant insight. We edit based on our intention, not the actual words on the page.
We all do it. So the auditory check forces a different kind of processing. He has Gemini 3 Pro read the entire article out loud.
And the ear catches things the eye misses.
Instantly. You hear the rhythm or lack of it. You hear jarring flow, verbose phrases, what he calls redundant repetition, things the eye has just become immune to.
So it's really an emotional and qualitative filter. You're checking to see if the message lands with the right rhythm and soul.
That's it. The final approval, the okay, is only given when the spoken text truly resonates with his inner intent. It proves that human sensory judgment is still the ultimate filter for quality.
I wonder about the practicality of that, though. For a big article, sure. But if you're trying to generate content quickly, is that step really feasible?
Well, the author frames it as essential, not optional. If the goal is this level of co-production, you can't skip the sensory input. And the time you save with the AI in the first 3 steps basically pays for the time you spend on this quality check.
That reframes efficiency. It's not about time to first draft. It's about time to a high-quality, publishable piece.
Precisely. And that impact brings us to the final piece of the puzzle. Step 5, crossing borders. A global voice.
Okay, what does this last step add to the method?
It's about reach. Tiryaki conducts all of these dialogues in English. So a conversation that might start with a very local issue, like the Nebelu River in Ankara,
is instantly transformed into a global narrative.
right. It makes the content accessible to the broadest possible audience, and it's also synergistic with the AI itself.
How so?
Well, models like Gemini are trained so extensively on the global English corpus. So working in English actually maximizes the power of the AI's associative engine back in step 1 and the depth of its critical support in step 2.
So the language choice isn't just for sharing. It's foundational to making the whole model work. It proves this is about processing information together to create new, shared meaning.
And maybe the most compelling validation of the whole thing, the source article we're talking about, the one detailing these 5 steps.
Let me guess.
It was composed through a live dialogue using this exact process, December 17th, 2025.
The methodology is its own proof of concept.
Oh.
That's fantastic. An elegant self-validating system.
The ultimate feedback loop. It shows how you move from a raw thought to a finished, polished, global piece of content.
So what does this all mean for you listening right now? We've seen a path from shallow Q&A to a deep partnership. You have a clear framework, branching for discovery, intuition to find the gem, synthesis to merge experience with data, the auditory check for soul, and finally, the global voice.
It's a way to move from just consuming information to actively creating curated knowledge.
Which really brings us to a final thought.
This raises a really interesting question for you to take away, and it builds directly on that auditory check. If the soul of a piece of writing is defined by its rhythm when you hear it, if listening catches flaws that the eye misses, then how much of your own information processing, the stuff you do every day, could be dramatically improved just by listening to it instead of only reading it?
So you mean for the high-stakes work you do, like prepping a critical summary for your boss or a complex proposal?
Exactly. Apply that auditory check. Use a simple text-to-speech function. Don't just read it back to yourself for the 20th time. Hear it.
Challenge yourself to do that this week.
You might discover gaps in logic or just a lack of flow that your eyes have been skipping over out of habit. It's a powerful human filter that we often neglect in the rush to get it done.
That is excellent advice to send us off with. We'll see you next time for the next deep dive.